नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूरये सच्चित् सुख स्वरूपाय स्वामिने
Are all the students who were there in the afternoon up there, or some are missing? I saw some of them walking to the other building, some students. Okay, so how many of you are now research students here? 3, 4, 3, 6, 7. Any of the afternoon students who was sitting in the afternoon missing now among the research students? Okay. And MA, how many MA students are there? Okay. Okay, good, good. Okay. BA? That's really interesting. BA students getting interested in listening to these talks that are not meant for them. Very, very good. Very, very interesting. I am very glad that BA students also got interested. Particularly at this age, you want to spend time in these evenings with something which is more interesting for that age, but you wanted to hear some serious talks. We are talking some serious things here. But probably you heard that this is not so serious. He is always joking and okay, yeah, true. We have been discussing various topics of contemporary relevance for Sanskrit studies. This afternoon we were discussing why the so-called scientific is not required for us. We need not be obsessed with the so-called scientific, looking for scientific. We should put something scientific in whatever we do and all that. Now we are going to discuss the question of whether Saastras got stagnated. Actually, it is so boring to repeatedly bring the name of Sheldon Pollock. But even this topic comes from his comment only. This Professor Sheldon Pollock from Columbia University in United States. Why his name? Sheldon. We are making him a big hero, right? By repeatedly bringing his name. Columbia. He is from Columbia University. He is a great Sanskrit scholar, we should agree. He studied Sanskrit extensively from various of his gurus, including Professor Ingalls at Harvard University. We had a great admiration for all these Westerners, Americans, British, Australian, and other scholars who studied Sanskrit. Just like that, we had the same admiration for Sheldon Pollock also, for having studied Sanskrit. In fact, we have so much respect for those others in other countries studying Sanskrit that we sometimes respected them more than our own scholars. For example, if Swami Japasiddhananda is speaking on Brahmasutra Bhashya, and some other scholar, say, there is a very good scholar belonging to Ramakrishna Math only, called Professor Jeffrey Long. You know this name? Professor Jeffrey Long from America. He is in United States. He belongs to Ramakrishna Math only. He is a great devotee of, actually his email profile mentions quotes from Mata Sharada Mata only. It is his profile actually. Under his profile he quotes only Sharada Mata. He is such a great devotee of Ramakrishna Math. Professor Jeffrey Long. If he would come here, if he would speak on, say, Brahmasutra Bhashya, and Swami Japasiddhananda speaks, we have a tendency to respect Professor Jeffrey Long more than Swami Japasiddhananda. This is Indian tendency. We have, white man speaking about Sutra Bhashya. We have that respect. And we have another attitude. If a Bengali tourist comes to Kolkata, goes to Kali Mandir and watches Kali there, we don't get surprised, we take it easy, we take it for granted. Anyway, any Bengali devotee would come and watch Kali Mata. But if there is an American tourist visiting Kali Mata temple, everyone we watch him, hey, American, white man. As if some chimpanzee has come, we get very much interested. All of us flock around him, and some of us go shake hands with him. Good morning, some selfie. Good morning, shake hands, everything. And the next question would be to ask him, do you like Kali? Or do you like Calcutta? Our expectation usually is that, yes, I like Calcutta, I love Calcutta, I die for Calcutta, all that. He does not say anything like that. Usually he says, He does not even understand what you have asked. Then you would be completely disappointed. That you expected that he would praise Calcutta, he would praise Kali and all that, right? And we pamper these people also. When they come, even if they speak little Bangla, we feel very happy. Even if he say, Amra Bangla, enough. Some white man has said, Amra Bangla, great man. And just for those two words, Amra and Bangla, we give him anything. Come, I'll feed you roti, I'll feed you this, I'll feed you that. We are of that nature, this is our nature. Probably all over the world people are like that, not only Indians. Maybe all over the world people get flattered when somebody visits their country. They think that he has visited that country only out of love and respect for that country. Usually tourists are not. For tourists, tourism is tourism. Just it is part of any other part of the world. They come, visit, something very interesting. These are weird people. Sometimes they visit things out of a feeling that they are weird people also. To go back and tell in their country that I saw some weird people, very funny people. They worship the sculpture of a woman saying Kali, 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 and they cut goats in front of that. All this they go back and tell. But we do not know. We think that they have come here only out of love for us. Sometimes they go back and tell very bad things about us. We do not know this. We just imagine that they tell only positive things about us. But when the Britishers lived here also, they collected our data and went back and told some funny things also, bad things about us also. For example, if you look at the meaning of sari in a dictionary, it says it's a long cloth wrapped around Indian woman's body. Sari is a long cloth wrapped around woman's body. All the women in India who wear sari would die if they read dictionaries. Is this the same? For them, that was something very funny, very interesting, that they saw and they went back and told these things in their country. They collected these materials, they collected saris, they collected blouses. They showed all this material there and said, they are funny people, they are barbarians, they eat with their hands. For us, not being able to eat with the hands is bad. Actually, we look at them as funny people who cannot eat with their hands and eat with their spoons. अरे नीचे तो नहीं बैठ सकता है, ऊपर ही बैठना है, उसको टेबल ही चाहिए, उसको स्पून चाहिए, फोर्क चाहिए. For them, we were barbarians because we were eating with our hands. They went back and said that these people are eating with their hands. We did not know that they would say these things about us and all that. But gradually what happened is, the subject in which I specialize, cultural anthropology, it developed all over the world. It started with Europeans only, because they became tourists, they got interested in other cultures and started studying. One of the interests was Sanskrit basically. Europeans became interested in other cultures mostly because of their interest in Sanskrit. All because they found similarities between their own European languages and Sanskrit. And they started connecting these languages and formed a group of languages, a family of languages called Indo-European family of languages. And then they created the theory of Proto-Indo-European and all that. So that was one of the triggers also for cultural anthropology. There was a subject called Philology, if you want to know. They were studying this subject, Philology developed. This is comparative study. Basically, they went on doing comparative studies of various cultures. Comparative study of philosophies, comparative study of mythologies, comparative study of languages, comparative study of literatures. All this they went on doing under the umbrella of philology. That's one subject that developed. Another subject that developed was ethnography. Ethnography. Ethnography means graphein, the Greek root means to write. Ethno is what is related to culture. Ethnography is to write about cultures. So what the early hobby ethnographers were doing was, for example, the wife of a British officer staying in Bengal. She is having no work at home when the officer goes to the office. She goes around, talks to the homemakers all around and asks, what are you doing? And she documents whatever lifestyle they have, materials that they are using, household instruments that they are using, proverbs, songs, stories, narratives, folk tales, fairy tales, myths, legends, all this. And she goes back and tells in that country. That kind of documentation of another culture is called ethnography. These were hobby ethnographers, but there were professional ethnographers also interested in professionally doing this. And this data collection about cultures of others was later analyzed in a systematic way. That kind of analysis of ethnography is called ethnology. From ethnography, they developed ethnology, which is study of cultures on the basis of documentation of these cultures. Today, what is being called as anthropology is this only. In East European countries, that is called ethnology. For example, if you want to apply for a course in anthropology by going to Poland or Slovakian countries, earlier they were Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia and these countries. Now they have all broken into new pieces. So if you go there and apply for anthropology, you don't find the board anthropology there, they call it ethnology. Ethnology is the name they give. And ethnology is the systematic study based on ethnography. Okay. And in the beginning, when they were doing it, they were prejudiced. They were negatively studying these cultures. They were always saying these are barbarians, these are backward people, these are with some irrational, unscientific behavior and all that. But gradually, some of them started saying, this is very bad, we should not be saying that. We should understand those people from their insider's perspective, from the insider's understanding. Today, in anthropology, they use the word emic understanding. Emic understanding means insider's understanding. So, the way Indian looks at Indian culture is called emic perspective of Indian culture. The way an analyst, scientific analyst looks at Indian culture is called ethic perspective. Emic and ethic are the words they use. So, this emic perspective started developing. They started saying we should sympathetically understand, we should favorably understand these cultures. That kind of attitude developed. This Sheldon Pollock was studying Sanskrit under his guru Ingalls and in Harvard University. By that time, this Ingalls and others started developing a sympathetic attitude. This is called cultural relativism. Cultural relativism means every culture is correct in itself. This attitude is called cultural relativism. And we should understand cultures from insider's perspective. So, these Ingalls and others developed that cultural relativism perspective towards Sanskrit, and they started respecting Sanskrit. They started looking at Sanskrit from Sanskrit perspective. Even Ingalls goes to the extent of saying that British Westerners earlier to me imposed their monstrous prejudice against Sanskrit. Monstrous, you understand? Monster means Rakshasa. Rakshasa attitude, very highly prejudiced attitude towards Sanskrit. I hate it, I don't like it, I want to understand Sanskrit from Sanskrit perspective, from the insider's perspective. Sheldon Pollock studied his Sanskrit from that guru. So, logically, he should also develop that attitude, that Sanskrit is a respectable language, we should understand it from inside and all that. But what is interesting about Western countries is that you will come into news only when you say something completely opposite to what your teacher has said or what your previous generation has said. And if you come into news like that, you will be promoted. There, teacher promotions from assistant professor to associate professor to professor, these promotions are dependent on the number of publications you have, number of books you publish, and these books also have to be path-breaking books. In India, our Guru Parampara was path laying, which रास्ता स्थापना करना चाहिए. देयर द बेस्ट वर्ड इज पाथ ब्रेकिंग. रास्ता को तोड़ना चाहिए. कोई रास्ता बनाया गया उसको तोड़ना है. This attitude was there. So if you write a path breaking book, a completely new idea, then you are respected greatly and you are promoted for that reason. So every new professor, every new applicant for a professor's job, assistant professor's job, they keeps looking for this opportunity. In what way can I say something absolutely new? So this Sheldon Pollock thought, my guru Ingalls developed respect for Sanskrit. So in what way can I come into news? I should remove that respect for Sanskrit. Then I will come into news. Because now all the students of my Professor Ingalls, they are all respecting Sanskrit. Now if I come and give them reasons why Sanskrit is bad, then they will all say, see, this is something new. I did not know. It is Sheldon Pollock who is helping me understand the bad things about Sanskrit. So he thought, and he wanted to come into news, and he started saying all these things about Sanskrit that we are discussing here. And for that he chose a very easy path. I should say lazy path. That is borrowing ideas from Indian Marxists. Because Indian Marxists have already said bad things about India, Sanskrit, Hinduism and all these things. And what Sheldon Pollock mostly does is repeat the same things in a more sophisticated language, uses postmodern vocabulary, uses postmodern analytical tools, analytical instruments and all that, makes it look like more complex, more rigorous. But the idea is the same. What are these ideas? For example, Sanskrit is bad because it is the language of Brahmins. And if you promote Sanskrit, Brahmins get promoted. If Brahmins get promoted, all other castes will get suppressed. Based on this logic, he wants to say that Sanskrit is a toxic language. He uses the word toxic. Toxic, you understand toxic? Toxin, visha. Sheldon Pollock says Sanskrit is a vishapurita bhasha. संस्कृत में विष है. संस्कृत में क्या विष है? संस्कृत ब्राह्मणों की भाषा है. अगर संस्कृत की आराधना किया जाती है तो ब्राह्मणों का उद्धार होगा. अगर ब्राह्मणों का उद्धार होगा तो कई जातियों का कुचलना होगा. इसलिए संस्कृत विश्व भाषा है. दिस इज हिज लॉजिक. So based on this logic, he called Sanskrit a toxic language, and he went on making wonderful statements, very, very interesting statements, which even a child in India would laugh at. But he went on making, and he went on making good name. Because of such publications, he went on getting very good name, became professor, senior professor, started getting big awards. Even Indian government gave him awards. Yes, government of India gave him awards for all such nonsense that he was doing. But this has become a fashion in India also now. In India also, if you want to make good name, make some nonsensical statement, Arnab Goswami will invite you. He will put it on the screen, India wants to know, he says, and you will have to make some statement. So for you to be invited by India Today or NDTV or Arnab Goswami or any channel, you have to say, for example, that humans walk on hands. Humans walk on hands. Is it correct? Is it correct? Humans walk on hands or feet? On feet. But you have to make a statement. humans walk on hands. Then everyone will come and ask you, no, humans walk on feet. How did you say humans walk on hands? The country wants to know. Nation wants to know. Actually, this is offense towards hands. This is offense towards feet. You are discriminating against feet. Actually, humans are walking on feet, you are saying hands. Now, this is a big news. TRP ratings go up. And his TRP ratings go up and your promotion. If you are an assistant professor, you will become associate professor. For making this wonderful statement that humans walk on hands. Make it. I am giving you a shortcut route to become a famous person. Try, all of you. We are all eating with mouths. Make a statement that we don't eat with mouth, we eat with something else. Famous. Then they will come and ask, it is an insult on mouth. You are discriminating against mouth. All mouth supporters, placards. And all other supporters, another placard. Discussion on this. What these people did also is that they started making very, very funny statements. For example, on one of these days during the talks, I am going to talk about this only to BA students. Then MA and research students can also attend, they are also welcome. On 19th January, early in the morning, 7:15 a.m. to 9:15 a.m., Ramayana othering, Bharata brothering. This is the statement of Sheldon Pollock only. He said, Ramayana is an othering book, Bharata is a brothering book. Othering means it alienates people, it separates people, it throws people away. Ramayana separates people. Okay, whoever is already friendly, it pushes it away. Whereas Bharata, even if they are separated, they will become brothers. That is what Bharata does. Why does he have to say these things? His problem was with Advani's Ratha Yatra for Ayodhya issue. Because Ram Janmabhoomi was being talked about, a very big cutout of Sri Ram was there. People were saying Jai Sri Ram, Jai Sri Ram. So he wanted to say something against Rama, Ramayana. They are respecting Rama, they are respecting Ramayana. I should say something very bad about Ramayana. He said Ramayana is an othering book and Bharata is a brothering book. He was so fascinated with his own rhyming, othering, brothering, and started saying all this things. Let us discuss on that day how that is such a ridiculous theory on that day. But today, let us see what kind of such statements he went on making. One of them is this. He said, in India, Saastras did not develop. They are stagnated. Whatever Shastra came into existence, it did not further develop. It is all because they have to have allegiance to Veda. Veda Pramanya is there. Everything has to be according to Veda. So they do not develop that Shastra. They do not bring any new idea into the Shastra. Whereas in science, we always bring new ideas. We always say whatever has been said by the previous scientist as wrong, and we bring new theories. Actually, there is a subject called philosophy of science. In the West, what is interesting is they go on developing new fields. And one of these is this philosophy of science. And there is one very famous philosopher of science called Karl Popper. He comes up with a theory that in science, any theory is not a theory unless it is falsified, falsifiable. Any law, any principle has to be falsifiable. That is, if you make a statement, you have to make it in such a way that you have to allow others to say that it is wrong. While making the statement itself, you should make it in such a way that others should say it wrong. It is wrong. If you say that this is my final statement, it can never be wrong, that is called as God's truth theory. God's truth theories are not allowed in science. It has to be Hocus Pocus theory. These are the two words. There is a pair of words they use. If it is not God's truth theory, the other theory is called Hocus Pocus theory. Hocus Pocus theory means a theory which is not claimed to be the permanent theory. Okay, that is called Hocus Pocus. Okay, so their theory itself is that. So they said that we went on bringing new ideas, we went on bringing new principles, new understandings, but in Sanskrit, Saastras did not develop. What do you think? Saastras developed or did not develop? They stopped. They did not bring any new ideas. BA students, you have any examples of new ideas in Sanskrit Saastras? One idea was there, later some new idea came, later some new idea came, later some new idea came. Like that, you have any examples in Sanskrit? Okay, let me just remind you, particularly BA students, Shankara brought which Vedanta? And did Vedanta stop there, or did new Vedanta theories come up? Vishishtadvaita Vedanta came, Dvaita Vedanta came, Dvaitadvaita Vedanta came, Achintya Bheda Bhedavada came, Bheda Bhedavada came. All these came, right? That means new theories have come. Within Vedanta, newer and newer theories, newer and newer schools of Vedanta have emerged. This is a common sense for any Indian Sanskrit knowing student, right? Even BS students are able to say. That is why I asked only BS students, not MA or PhD or any other student. I was asking directly only BS students because this is such a common sense. Everyone knows. But Sheldon Pollock thinks new ideas did not come. He knows. It does not mean that he does not know. If this is such a basic common sense, Sheldon Pollock must be knowing that newer and newer schools of Vedanta have come. But he says Shastras got stagnated. They did not develop because they need an allegiance to Veda. Yes, all the schools of Vedanta, apart from Advaita Vedanta, they had an allegiance to Veda only. Veda Pramanya was accepted by all the schools of Vedanta. Whether it is Dvaita Vedanta or Vishishtadvaita Vedanta or Achintya Bheda Bheda, everyone was trying to show that it is there in Vedas only. Vedas supported, Brahmanas supported, Aranyakas supported, Upanishads supported. They went on quoting from Shastras and they said, see, this is the right view, my view is correct. And they were healthily debating among themselves. If there is an Advaita Vedantin and another Dvaita Vedantin, they used to healthily debate. Vakyartha, Shastrartha was happening. It was not a physical fight, but just an argument. A logical argument used to happen, and people used to say, he got defeated, I got defeated, I defeated him. All this was happening. So, it is not that somebody says something and it is accepted as the final truth and people don't argue about it. There used to be a very healthy culture of arguments, counter arguments, debates, and all that happening between different schools of Vedanta. Even before these schools of Vedanta emerged, when Shankaracharya was propagating Advaita Vedanta, he was in debates with Buddhists. And Buddhists were also healthily debating with him. Those were healthy debates, there was no physical fight. In a very friendly way, they used to argue with each other. And these scholars like Sheldon Pollock and many other Western Indologists want to show to the world that Buddhists and Hindus, they use the word Hindus. Buddhists are also Hindus, in fact, actually. Do you know that there is a discipline called comparative religion? There is a subject studied in many universities all over the world, and in that discipline called comparative religion, they classify religions, and one of the groups of religions there is Dharmic religions. Which are these Dharmic religions? What they call Hinduism and what they call Buddhism, what they call Jainism, they group all the three together under Dharmic religions. And there is another grouping of religions called Abrahamic religions. They are also called as Semitic religions, Judaism, Islam and Christianity. These three are grouped together under Abrahamic religions. So, any common basic student, preliminary, elementary student of comparative religion also knows that Islam, Judaism and Christianity belong to one category, Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism belong to another category. All because they have some common concepts. Dharma is common for all of them. Karma is common for all of them. Janana Marana Chakra, cyclic birth and death cycles, this is common for all of them. Concept of moksha, though they use different words, nirvana in Buddhism, nirvana in Jainism, but same concept, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. This is common to all of them. So, Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism, they call it Hinduism, so we are also calling, otherwise it is Vedic tradition. So, Vedic tradition, Buddhism and Jainism, they belong to the same stock of religions, is accepted world over, it is common sense. So, but still they create a wedge between Buddhism, Hinduism and Jainism and say this idea is not yours, this idea is not Hindu, this has come from Buddhists, you have stolen it from Buddhists, you have beaten Buddhists and you have taken it from Buddhists, and you have broken the Buddhist temples, you have broken the Jain temples, you have killed Buddhists. All these stories they create and try to create a wedge between Buddhists and Hindus today. Otherwise, actually, originally there was a very healthy culture of Buddhists and Vedic people debating with each other, arguing with each other. They learnt from each other, they borrowed concepts from Buddhism into Hinduism, Hinduism into Buddhism. Lots of mutual borrowing was happening. So, this he hides and says that no new developments came. Within Buddhism also, original Buddhism changed into Mahayana, Vajrayana, and the other Buddhism was called Hinayana, and the same kinds of classifications came in Jainism, and Jainism also did not remain what it was originally. Buddhism also did not remain what it was originally. There are lot of evolution took place. There are lot of changes have taken place in Buddhism, in Jainism, in Hindu philosophy, in Hindu culture, in Hindu traditions. He says they got stagnated. What he means by stagnated, he himself does not understand. What is meant by stagnation? He himself agrees that these are all there. These are all new ideas. One after the other, new ideas have emerged. Let me tell you another thing. He wrote a book called Death of Sanskrit, an article called Death of Sanskrit. Many people who don't read this book, they think that by death of Sanskrit he means that Sanskrit is not being spoken today anywhere in India. That is what he means. No. If you read the book and article, what he means by that statement is that he says up to 1850, there was a huge amount of creativity in Sanskrit. Newer and newer ideas have come. That creativity stopped in 1850. He calls that stopping of creativity in Sanskrit by 1850 as death of Sanskrit. That itself is a wrong theory. We are going to have a discussion on how it is wrong. On 18th January, 7:15 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. meant for BA and MA students, Modern Creative Vibrant Life of Sanskrit. There is going to be a talk early in the morning at 7:15 to show how the idea that in 1850 creativity in Sanskrit stopped is a wrong idea. I am going to give you all the evidences for how creativity continued in Sanskrit even after 1850 in a very, very big way. Let us keep it aside. At least for the sake of argument, let us agree with him, okay, in 1850 creativity stopped, okay. But what was there up to 1850? Creativity was there. He himself is agreeing. Then Shastras got stagnated. What is this? If Shastras got stagnated, what is creativity? This is mutual contradiction. This is self-contradiction. He himself is saying there is an enormous amount of creativity in Sanskrit until that time, and he himself says Shastras got stagnated. Okay, and you know that in Nyaya also, original traditional Nyaya, Prachina Nyaya was there, and it is here in this state, Bengal, that Navya Nyaya got created. And this Navya Nyaya is now creating ripples all over the world. People are getting completely fascinated by Navya Nyaya because it is comparable to the rigor of mathematical logic that is useful for computer science. Bertrand Russell, Matilal, and there are so many people who get fascinated by this. And one Raja Ramanna from India, one nuclear scientist, he also got fascinated by Navya Nyaya and wrote lots of books on that. There is a lot of discussion on Navya Nyaya today, but Navya Nyaya, is it a stagnation? If Nyaya got stagnated, Navya Nyaya would not have come at all. And within Navya Nyaya also, after it was created, lot of changes have come. Newer and newer ideas within Navya Nyaya have emerged. And within Mimamsa, we talk of Prabhakara school and Bhatta school. If ideas got stagnated, newer and newer ideas would not have come. So take any Shastra, nothing stopped at a certain point. So this creating a picture that there was no further development in Shastras, they got stagnated, is absolutely wrong. These are done with the intention that you are respecting Sanskrit, we want to say something against Sanskrit. Some statement which is controversial, which is contradicting to my own statement, never mind, but I will make some negative statement about Sanskrit. That's what he wanted to do, and he said Shastras got stagnated. I want to tell you something about the Shastra which is very close to my heart, called Alankara Shastra. In Alankara Shastra, how many of you are interested in Alankara Shastra? You know Alankara Shastra? Okay. Yes, all of you know Alankara Shastra. And probably as one of the basic ideas, foundations of Alankara Shastra, people would have told you about Kavyatma Siddhantas, right? And you know that someone proposes Dhvani as Kavyatma, Dhvaniratma Kavyasya. Someone else says Auchityameva Kavyasya Jivitam Parichakshate. Someone else comes and says Vakroktih Kavya Jivitam. There is Ritiratma Kavyasya also. There is, everyone went on proposing newer and newer concepts as Kavyatma concepts. Is it stagnation? If Alankara Shastra got stagnated, how newer and newer Kavyatma theories would have come into existence? Not only newer and newer ideas, if you go deeper into that Alankara Shastra, you would realize that the idea of Dhvani or idea of Vyanjana probably existed by the time of Bhamaha itself. But gradually that developed into such a wonderful theory that Anandavardhana could evolve it into a full-fledged Atman theory, Kavyatma theory. So how such a nice, smooth, finer and finer development of ideas comes into existence, and how, for example, Lakshana. Lakshana was there in Mimamsa also, Lakshana was there in Nyaya also, and Lakshana went into Alankara Shastra as an Alankara Shastra concept. And in Dhvanyaloka, how Lakshana Purva Paksha is done, it is proposed by Anandavardhana, and he brings out Vyanjana as a counter to it. Those beautiful arguments, if you read the whole Dhanya Loka, how those arguments are given for Lakshana, for Vyanjana, against Lakshana, such a beautiful discussion. He is such a wonderful scholar, Sheldon Pollock. He would not have been oblivious of all these things. He very clearly reads. He knows that people have developed such ideas, such niceties, such finer and finer developments they brought. And there is a lot of discussion on that. Professor V. Raghavan, he writes about all these things in English only, and he has shown how the idea of Lakshana develops, how the idea of Alankara develops. All these things are already published, he knows. Okay? And Vakrokti, for example, earlier it was considered to be an Alankara, but how that Alankara Vakrokti got developed into a fuller concept and got developed into a very full-fledged Kavyatma theory, and for that he classifies Kavitva Margas into Vichitra Marga and Sunnita Marga, and he says it is Vakrokti is part of Vichitra Marga, and he brings out meticulously Vakrokti at all levels, Vakrata, Ukti Vakrata at all levels, right from Varna Vinyasa Vakrata to Prabandha Vakrata, all levels. He goes up to Pada Purvardha Vakrata, Pada Parardha Vakrata, then goes to the higher level, Vakya Vaichitrya Vakrata, then goes to the higher level, says Prakarana Vakrata and Prabandha Vakrata. So systematically he develops Vakrata at all levels. All that people know that these things have come. How can they say that Shastras got stagnated? Right? And take one of the theories, Rasa concept, and within Rasa concept, Rasa Nishpatti itself has been explained in so many different ways. He knows. He himself recently published a book called Rasa Reader. Rasa, a reader. Reader means textbook like a book. Some American publisher. Sheldon Pollock only. Rasa Reader. It's a recent publication by him. Rasa Reader. No, actually this Rasa Reader got published very recently after I came back from United States, and I had no opportunity to discuss that. My discussion with him on the University of Chicago campus was on Bhattanayaka Abhinava Gupta relationship. No, he recently in another publication also he said that Abhinava Gupta plagiarizes Bhattanayaka. Plagiarizes means he does Grantha Chaurya. Abhinava Gupta chor hai. अभिनव गुप्ता भट्टनायक से चुराई किया है. क्या चुराई किया है? साधारणीकरण. साधारणीकरण का चुराई हुआ है. Does anyone say like this? In any modern subjects also, words get proposed by one person and they are again used, borrowed by the next person, but they are given a new meaning. That does not mean that is Chaurya. That is not Grantha Chaurya. No one calls it Grantha Chaurya. They just say that one concept got evolved. One concept has been borrowed and it went on developing through various people. But deliberately to create some sensation, to create some news, he says Abhinava Gupta does plagiarism from Bhattanayaka. Sadharanikarana, he does chori from Bhattanayaka. Then my question to him during that, it was a student conference, they call them student conferences. In that conference, my question to him was, how did you know that Bhattanayaka existed at all? For BS students, let me tell you, you may not know, that we know today that Bhattanayaka exists only because Abhinava Gupta quoted him. If Abhinava Gupta did not quote Bhattanayaka, we would not have known that there was a Bhattanayaka at all. Most of the previous theories of Rasanishpatti Sutra, like Sri Shankuka or whoever, we do not have their books. Extant books are not there from them. We know their names only because Abhinavagupta quoted them. So, if a scholar is quoting another scholar, previous scholar, how would he plagiarize from him? It is only he who brought that scholar to your notice. Understand? So, I bring to your notice that there is some building nearby. I announce it that this building is there, and then people say that, oh, you have stolen from that house, that is why. You are announcing the board of that house. If I want to steal from that house, I would hide the address of that house. You understand? So he says he has plagiarized from it. But you all know that the rasam yannishtaha, right? And there is rasa nishpatti, the how rasa comes into existence, bhojyavada, abhivyaktivada, all these are newer ideas only. How can he say that Shastras got stagnated? Right? New ideas have come into existence. And some information you might not know. In rasa theories, new theories have come into existence after Shantarasa. Within Shantarasa discussion, people came up with varieties of Veera. And they started connecting those varieties of Veera with Shanta. For example, some said that Dana Veera is Shanta. Some said that Tapo Veera is Shanta. Some said that Dharma Veera is Shanta. There is a lot of discussion about different varieties of Veera Rasa being connected to Shanta Rasa. But how did those varieties of Veera itself come into existence? Unless they were creative in their mind and they went on applying their ideas to that. And what I said you might not know is that during the post-independent period in India, people came up with the theories like Swatantra Veera. Because there was that Swatantriya Andolan that was going on, national movement was going on. The slogan was freedom, 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 and there was a lot of literature created like Anandamat from here, Bankim Chandra. So it's a new concept. In Anandamat, whatever was projected, the concept of Vande Mataram or Bharat Mata or sadhus being interested in freedom movement, all those concepts, they were new ideas. People started saying that it is a new rasa. It is Swatantriya Veera Rasa. He was the hero there is a Swatantriya Veera hero, Swatantriya Veera Nayaka. If Shastras get stagnated, how would they create new rasas like Swatantriya Veera Rasa? And during post-independent period, people started saying that Dharma Veera, for example, is the Angirasa of Ramayana. Earlier, Angirasa of Ramayana was proposed to be Shantarasa by Anandavardhana in Dhvanyaloka. If you read Anandavardhana's Dhvanyaloka, you find proposals that Shantarasa is the Angirasa of Ramayana and Mahabharata both. But you can see that there were scholars who proposed Karuna Rasa as the Angirasa of Ramayana also. Vishwanatha. And you have Bhavabhuti also taking Karuna as very important, and in his Uttara Ramacharita he takes Eko Rasa Karuna Eva and he takes it there. So he is adding Karunasya Angirasatva to Uttara part also, Uttara part of the story also. And probably he was thinking that the Pradhana Ramayana is Karuna Rasa Pradhana, and the same Karuna Rasa Pradhanatva is being continued into Uttarakanda. So those things already existed. But there were proposals during post-independent period saying that Dharma Veera is the Angirasa of Ramayana. How? Perseverance of Rama. Perseverance means ability to withstand difficulties. What was happening to Rama? He was facing difficulties all through his life. Both Rama and Sita were facing difficulties all through the life. Actually, some people keep saying that we should not be Rama because we face difficulties. We should not be Sita because we face difficulties and all that. But actually, the heroism of Rama and heroism of Sita is all because they faced those difficulties. They withstood all those difficulties in the life. In English, there is a word for BA students, for the benefit of those who do not know those English words. I am giving that word, perseverance. Perseverance means ability to withstand difficulties and continue one's own conviction through difficulties also. Okay? If you have a conviction, if you have a principle, and you want to continue that throughout your life in spite of all the difficulties, that ability to continue your conviction through difficulties is called perseverance. Yeah, Dhriti. Okay, so this perseverance is Dharma Veera of Rama. Rama is a Veera not because he killed Ravana, not because he was a great warrior, not because he was fighting well. He was a Veera because he was able to withstand difficulties and continue his conviction in Dharma in spite of all those difficulties. That is Dharma Veera. Right? And there is a new proposal in post-independent period that Dharma Veera is the Angiras of Ramayana. And another proposal is Dharma Veera is the Angiras of Mahabharata also. Yuddha Veera is the Angiras of Ramayana, Yuddha Veera is the Angiras of Mahabharata also is there, but it is not made into a very clear theory. But when people say that Shivaji was being taught by his mother Jijabai, she was teaching Ramayana and Mahabharata to him to make him into a Veera, warrior. It means that Jijabai was looking at Ramayana and Mahabharata as Yuddha Veera books. Okay, so this is only a popular idea, it is not made into a full-fledged theory, but it shows that there is a possibility, at least at a popular level, that Ramayana and Mahabharata can be viewed as Yuddha Veera books. So, Shanta, Karuna, Yuddha Veera, Dharma Veera, all kinds of views of Ramayana and Mahabharata existed, and people understood these books in very, very different ways. And most of these post-independent proposals of Dharma Veera and all these things came from my own teacher. My teacher of Alankara Shastra, Professor G.V. Subramaniam, a Telugu speaking professor, he, G.V. Subramaniam, he proposed these Dharma Veera theories, and he went on to create a new Rasa Samikarana Siddhanta also, in which he says Dharma Veera eva rasanam rasaha. In comparison to Bhoja's theory of Shringara eva rasanam rasaha. No, he is just Subramaniam, no Iyer. He is an Iyer only, but because he is a Telugu speaking Iyer, he did not keep Iyer at the end of his name. Iyers means Smartha Brahmins. Don't get confused if someone says I am an Iyer. Iyer in Tamil means Shankara follower Brahmin. So, if any Advaita following Brahmin is there in Tamil Nadu, they were called Iyers. If any Ramanuja following Brahmins were there, they were called Iyangars. It is simply that. So, my professor also was a Shankara following Brahmin, so he must be called Iyer only if it is a Tamil Brahmin, because he was a Telugu Brahmin, he was not called, he was just Subramaniam. So, he proposed all these Dharma Veera concepts as Angiras of Ramayana, Angiras of Mahabharata, and he proposed the theory of Dharma Veera eva rasanam rasaha. He was bold enough to do all these things even in post-independent period. So, Alankara Shastra did not stop during independence also. After independence also it continued. Another Telugu speaking professor, scholar came up with a theory of Shringara, a new theory of Shringara called Amalina Shringara Rasa. By Amalina Shringara he meant Shringara Rasa in which sexual rati is not the sthayi bhava. Sthayi bhava, there is sneha, friendship. If friendship is the sthayi bhava of Sringara rasa, then it is called Amalina Sringara rasa. There is a concept in English called platonic love, which is very much comparable to this Amalina Sringara Siddhanta. And there is a lot of discussion about whether platonic love and Amalina Sringara rasa of this professor are the same or not. But without going into the details of all that, let us understand that new theories were proposed. New theories of rasa were proposed. It did not stop there. And new rasas were also proposed. You know that Bhakti rasa was proposed only very lately in 17th century. Only. And how Bhakti rasa can be rasa, cannot be rasa, arguments were given one after the other by people. So if you go through the history of Alankara Shastra, you can see very clearly that people were bold enough to come up with newer and newer theories. They were bold enough to come up with new proposals. I come up with a new rasa theory. People were bold enough. I am saying this in front of all of you young people to inspire you to come up with a new theory. Are you all bold? Would you like to come up with a new theory of rasa? Please propose a new rasa. Take a set of books in Indian literature, new books or old books, look at them differently, then you might come up with a new theory of rasa. This rasa has not been recognized by earlier Alankara Shastra authors. Now I am proposing this theory because these books can be explained only through this rasa theory. You can say that. Please do. And you can also come up with new kavyatma theories. Okay? Not only dhvani, not only auchitya, you can come up with a new concept. We are all capable of doing that. You are all capable of doing that. Please do come with newer and newer theories of Alankara Shastra. We are all doing that. Please do that. I am going to wait for maybe another 5 years from Ramakrishna University. Some at least 5 new theories should come in Shastras. Whether it is Nyaya, Vedanta, Mimamsa, or particularly Alankara Shastra, Kavyatma theories, Rasa theories, explaining literature in a new way, with new concepts. It is possible, it is happening. People are doing. This they do not know, that is why they are saying that Shastras got stagnated. They did not. They did not get stagnated. Newer and newer developments are coming, and we are all capable of coming up with those new theories. For example, people say that Advaita Vedanta also during modern period got new shades. All kinds of new shades of Advaita Vedanta are coming up. There is one Sachidananda Saraswati of Holenar Sepur near Mysore. He started his own new interpretations in minute aspects of Advaita Vedanta. And when people talk about Advaita view of Ramana Maharshi, it's a little different from the traditional Advaita Vedanta. And people interpret Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's Advaita also to be a little different from Shankara's Advaita Vedanta. So this is happening, this went on happening in India. Newer and newer ideas went on emerging. It was allowed. People did not say, how dare you? They did not say any time. They said, oh wow, some new idea has come. Now let us come and discuss. They enjoyed it. They said, if Madhvacharya comes and says Dvaita Vedanta, then Shankara followers enjoy it. Bapre, we have got some good opportunity now. Some Vakyartha Sadas can happen. Let us discuss. If there is no Madhva, there is no Ramanuja, what is the fun? If we always keep saying Shankara, 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 no fun. There has to be a Madhva, there has to be Dvaita, there has to be Ramanuja, there has to be Vishishtadvaita, then only fun. We enjoyed it. We allowed it to happen. We never said, this is absolutely avaidika, go off, shut your mouth, you cannot speak at all. No, it was not stopped like that. People just said, okay, come on, now game starts. Let us debate. Right? So, you all should have that boldness. Come up with achintya bheda bheda something else. Chintya bheda bheda. If it is achintya bheda bheda, you call it chintya bheda bheda. But come up with some new school of Vedanta. Don't worry. You will not be thrown out from India. You will be welcomed. People discuss it. But you should be capable of having a robust theory which you can defend in Vakyartha Sadas. You should have that boldness to do that. Please do. You understand what I am saying? It is allowed in India. We never got stagnated. And if they say that it is because of allegiance to Vedas that it got stagnated, what is this allegiance to Vedas? Let me tell you that any tradition, whether it is artistic tradition or philosophical tradition, always a tradition has got one basic spirit. That basic spirit might be given a name called Veda, might not be given a name, but there is always a common spirit. For example, modern science is there. Even modern science has got a particular tradition. It continues only within that tradition. What they call scientific method, that within that scientific method only all the whole science developed. They may not give the name Veda to that, they might just give the name science. That is also a spirit. So, all the newer developments in science always have to corroborate with that original spirit of science. Okay? So, that original spirit is being given the name Veda in India, in Vaidika Parampara, that is all. It is not that Veda is there holding a stick in its hand and it will always beat others if anyone goes out of Vedic tradition. No. Vedas are the spirit of a certain culture. Wherever you go, any tradition has a particular spirit. For example, Odissi dance is there. Many new developments may happen in Odissi dance, but there is this original spirit of Odissi which should not change. For example, Tribhangi is the characteristic feature of Odissi dance. So, within Tribhangi, you do anything else, but it has to be Tribhangi, it has to be Lasya Pradhana, it has to be the Lasya Pradhana Tribhangi performance in an Odissi style, it has to be there, but within that make any change, it is allowed. New schools of Odissi are created. But if Odissi becomes Kathak, it is not allowed. Because Odissi has to be Odissi, it should not be Kathak. Kathak should not become Odissi. So, there is this identity of a certain tradition without deflecting from the original identity of that tradition, create any number of changes in it, people allowed it. You understand what I am saying? So, if there is that identity, if there is that original spirit to Vaidika tradition, it is what is called as Veda. It does not mean that Veda is some super boss sitting somewhere and we always bend down to Veda and say, oh Veda, I am having allegiance to you, and it controls you, it does not allow any creativity in you or any such thing. The Veda Pramanya is the spirit. It creates an identity for the Vaidika Parampara. That is all. And what is that spirit which is coming from Veda Pramanya? It may differ, its interpretation may differ from person to person. For example, how Brahman is interpreted may change, but accepting Brahman itself is the common feature of all the Vedanta schools. That is why they use the word Brahmavadin. What is Brahman? Does anyone in any school of Vedanta differ from the idea that Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma? Because it is an Upanishadic statement. No one can differ, right? So, and does anyone differ from the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter answer to Kim Tad Brahma? Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Aksharam Brahma Paramam and Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, if you combine these two, the definition of Brahman is the imperishable raw material of everything that is there. You understand? Imperishable raw material of everything that is there. So, what is raw material? Raw material for furniture is wood, right? Raw material for golden jewelry is, I said golden jewelry and I am asking what is the raw material? What is the raw material of all the pottery material? Clay, right? Clay is the raw material. Can there be a single raw material for everything that is there? People may agree, may not agree. If people agree that there is a single raw material for everything, such people are called Brahmavadins. Okay? If people say that there is one single raw material out of which everything is made, that single raw material is called Brahman. And Nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate satah. So there has to be something that is existing that should not go. So Brahman is that from which everything is coming, and Brahman is not getting destroyed. This Advaitins or Vishishtadvaitins or Advaitins, they do not differ from this. Everyone agrees with this definition of Brahman. And if anyone differs with this, he becomes a non-Brahmanvadin. He is not a Brahmavadin. That is, he becomes an Avaidika person. So the difference between Vaidika and Avaidika is one concept called Brahman being accepted by all the Vaidikas, and what is the relation between Jiva and Brahman, Ishvara and Brahman. Those are the issues among various schools of Vedanta, but they do not differ with the idea that there is Ishvara. Is there any school of Vedanta, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Advaita, Achintya Bheda, Bheda or whatever, which differs with the idea of Ishvara itself? It says Ishvara does not exist, Ishvara is not there. I mean Irishvara Vedantin. Is there anything like that? Everyone agrees that there is Ishvara. Everyone agrees that there is Brahman. Everyone agrees that there is Jiva. Right? But what is the relation between Jiva, Ishvara and Brahman? In Madhva philosophy, in Dvaita philosophy, Jiveshvara Bheda, Brahmeshvara Bheda, Jiva Jiva Bheda also. And this Jiva Jiva Bheda, all of you are very good students of Sankhya. You know that Purusha Anekatva is already there in Sankhya itself. Right? Purusha Bahutva is there. So, from Purusha Bahutva already Jiva Jiva Bheda is already there. What Madhvacharya does is he just borrows that and creates his own school of Vedanta. People did not disagree with him on that count. For example, post Madhva Shankara philosophers said, we have absolutely no difference of opinion with Ananda Tirtha. Madhvacharya is also called as Ananda Tirtha. People like Sarvajñatma Muni and Chitsuka, these people said, okay, we have no disagreement with him because those are basics. Jiva Jiva Bheda is anyway there. But from Jiva Jiva Bheda, there is the Jiva Jiva Aikya also. We go to a different level at a different kind of argument, they said. So, what happens when they say we are all Vaidikas is that they have certain basic concepts which they agree with. Just like even if you are Einstein, I do not know how many of you are science students, in physics, in classical in physics, classical is Newtonian physics, that is called classical mechanics, and from there you go to Einsteinian physics, which is relativity theory. Ideas, the basic concepts of Newton have not been completely thrown out by Einstein, he only reinterpreted them. He gave new ideas, same mechanics, same concepts of power, energy, force, displacement, everything, but he gave a different view by going to theory of accelerating reference frames and non-accelerating reference frames and all that. So, when he does that, he is agreeing with Newton in some basics. It does not mean it is stagnation. There is one basic tradition of physics that has some basic foundation, and within the tradition developments come. So, Vaidika tradition also, because it has got a basic foundation, within Vedanta certain basics like Brahman, Ishvara, Jiva have agreed upon. How they interpret Ishvara, Jiva and Brahman only changed. It happens in science also, it happens in physics, it happens everywhere. But it is shown as though only Vaidika people have got this stagnating idea of allegiance to Vedas and Veda Pramanya and all that. It happens everywhere. Any tradition, whether it is this tradition of a social science or a tradition of a humanities discipline or a modern discipline or a traditional discipline or a Vaidika discipline or an Avaidika discipline, certain basic tenets always remain the same. So, some basic tenets remaining the same does not mean stagnation. You understand? Kathak remains Kathak as long as it has those basic features of Kathak dance. Within that, many changes have come. Kathak has changed a lot. Many classical dance traditions in India, Kuchipudi dance tradition, it has got its own features, basic features, but Kuchipudi dance tradition did not remain as it was in the very beginning. Maybe our oldest documentation of Kuchipudi tradition is 14th century AD. But later also there were many new developments in Kuchipudi tradition, but as long as it remains original Kuchipudi, it is allowed. So, every tradition has got a common spirit and a change. So, Vaidika tradition also has got a common spirit and a change. Change is allowed, new developments are allowed, but within the common spirit. So, that within the common spirit is Veda Pramanya. You understand what I mean? So, Veda Pramanya is not to control you. It is to maintain the identity of the tradition. Because if you don't maintain that identity through some means, whether it is Veda Pramanya or whatever, it will change into something else. Kuchipudi will turn into Kathak or Kathak will turn into Odissi. Hindustani will turn into Carnatic music and Carnatic music will turn into Hindustani. If you want to maintain the identity of Hindustani music, certain basic features of Hindustani music have to be maintained, or basics of Carnatic music have to be maintained. For any artistic tradition or a Shastric tradition or a scientific tradition of modern sciences also, I am saying, even modern art forms like pop culture, pop music, rap or metal, hard metal, that metal, soft rock, hard rock, tap dance, belly dance, Caribbean music, whatever you go, wherever you go, that has to have a common feature, a basic features. You can have a new Caribbean music, but it has to have the basic Caribbean features. You understand? So, allegiance to Veda, that is Veda Pramanya, is only to maintain the identity of the Vaidika Parampara. Otherwise, it would become a totally different tradition, a Vaidika tradition. For example, the basic ideas like Brahman are lost. Then you are no longer a Brahmavadin. Vaidikas are Brahmavadins. Avaidikas are not Brahmavadins. That is, they do not agree that there is an imperishable raw material of everything that is. They don't agree with that. They are Kshanikavadins, they are Vijnanavadins. So they don't agree with that. So if you differ from those basic tenets, you are changing into something else. No one wants to change into something else. Would you like to change into completely a different person? Whatever new developments come into yourself, you may grow beard or remove beard, right? You may develop French beard or grow bigger beard. You may become Osama bin Laden in your figure with a long beard and your turban and everything, or you may completely turn into a shaved head, but you want to remain yourself. Right? Do you want to die? If you change into totally something other than what you are, that means you are dying. No one wants to die. Right? Vaidika Parampara also does not want to die. It wants to remain Vaidika Parampara only in spite of all the changes that come into it. Okay? So, losing identity is death. No one wants death. Everyone wants to survive. Vaidika Parampara also wanted to survive. And for that, some mechanism was developed. That is Shruti Smriti mechanism. Shruti Smriti mechanism is the mechanism that was evolved to maintain the identity of Vaidika Parampara. You understand what I am saying? So, don't think that somebody was sitting under a tree with a big stick and said, come, if you don't agree with Vaidika Parampara, I will beat you. Nothing of that sort. Oh, okay, you don't agree with Vaidika Parampara. After all, you would become an Avaidika. That's all. But if you are agreeing with Vaidika Parampara, you will become one of the members of Vaidika. And then you can be creative within that. You can bring any new change, create new ideas. Develop new ideas, come up with new schools of Vedanta, new Alankara Shastra, new Kavyatma theories, new Rasa theories. You understand what I am saying? So, there is freedom within rigidity. That rigidity is part of life. We are all rigid. We are all rigid about our identity. We don't want to lose our basic identity in spite of our readiness to change. Many people say that this boy has changed after marriage. I tell them that getting married is only to change. Why do you get married if you don't want to change? You have to change. After getting married, right? You have to get influenced by your wife. Otherwise, don't get married at all. If you want to remain what you are today, even after marriage, don't get married. If your relatives in your mother's house say, this fellow has changed after marriage and all that, tell them, yes, I am proud. I have changed. I got married only to change. And if you go back to your village and people say, this fellow went to university, he has changed. You say, I am proud. Yes, all the way I travelled up to Kolkata, Belur, only to change. Why should I be the same person? If you go back to your village, your worry is always that, अरे तुम तो बहुत बदल गए हो रे. हाँ, बदलने के लिए तो जा गया हूँ. अगर मैं ऐसे ही रहना चाहता तो यूनिवर्सिटी को क्यों जाता हूँ? बेलूर तक जाने का क्या आवश्यकता है? Right? So, we want to change, we are changing and we keep changing, and you are going to be totally a different person. Maybe you are 25 or 30 now. From here, at the age of 50, if I see you, you will be a totally different person. You have to change, but you will remain what you are also. There is some common features in you. There are those basics in you which will not change. People keep saying, even at the age of 50, when they see you, they say, yes, you are the same person. But still they say you have changed. You are the same person, you have changed. You are the same person is Veda Pramanya. You have changed these new theories. Vaidika Parampara also is the same because there is that Veda Pramanya. It will remain the same. It will remain the identity. But new ideas keep coming. Right? If a small individual like you and me, we want to retain our identity, a whole culture, a whole Vaidika culture, if it has got that tendency, an organic tendency, a living tendency, a life tendency, a spirit of life, that I want to be the same what I am, is it wrong? Is it wrong to say I have Vaidika Pramanya, Veda Pramanya, I want to remain the same? In spite of changing, I can change into so many different things. Ganga changes its course all through its journey. But it is Ganga. It is the same Ganga. At some places it flows calmly, peacefully. At some places it is wide and deep. At some places it is shallow. At some places it falls from the hills. And it is same Ganga. Vaidika Parampara is also like that. It has changed. There are many changes that have taken place in Vaidika Parampara. There is no stagnation in it. But it always wants to remain the same. Because that is an organic tendency of any culture, any tradition, any parampara, any Sanskriti, any Rashtra. That is the organic tendency. Organic means life, life tendency. There is life in it. If it has got this tendency, it is a symptom of life that it is trying to remain the same. If it is not retaining that original spirit in it, it is death. Right? So, having Veda Pramanya as the central spirit and still having novelty, scope for new developments, scope for new theories is nothing wrong. It is not mutually contradicting. That is the beauty of the concept, that there is rigidity and freedom also. There is that commonness and there is this differentiation, diversity that comes in the tradition.
What are the arguments he has against this? How do you say this? Because he has also studied, obviously, that when he said it is stagnated, what are the arguments he puts forward?
The same thing that Veda Pramanya, they never differ from the Veda Pramanya. So every time you have to go back to Veda. So it does not give scope for such a big development, new development, that Veda Pramanya itself is disagreed with.
But that is there even in English literature.
Yes.
Everywhere it is.
So as long as you don't question, as long everything, whether if it is Christianity, some basic tenets are there. Whatever new changes have come in Christianity, that basic tenets will keep the same.
New Bible versions, they called it apocryphal gospel.
Yes.
They did not accept that.
Yeah. So if it completely differs from the fundamentals, they will throw it away. That's quite natural. In any tradition, that is quite natural. So such basics, as long as people don't question, as long as people don't go to him and say, okay, this is quite natural. Any tradition has some common tenets and new developments happen. He keeps on saying this. If people go and say this is quite common and all that, immediately what they do is they take resort to postmodern vocabulary and keep on saying, you are not able to understand the interpellation of ideology that is happening into this and all kinds of those things, and they try to escape.
Did you have any opportunity to meet Jacques Derrida?
No. Jacques Derrida is a French. Yes. Jacques Derrida is a French professor. I can even not imagine to have any interaction with him. He is considered to be a very big man in philosophy, in postmodern philosophy. But what is interesting is that his commentator was an Indian, Gayatri Spivak. One professor who was considered to have actually understood Jacques Derrida very well has the name Gayatri in her name, and Gayatri Spivak wrote a lot on, for example, on grammatology. The book has an introduction by Gayatri Spivak and all that. And very big critiques of postmodernism by Jacques Derrida also came from India only, from a Punjabi professor. And people showed similarities between Jacques Derrida's ideas and Vakyapadiyam. If you are interested in knowing what are those ideas, how are they in Vakyapadiyam, I will talk about that also. How Jacques Derrida's ideas have some similarity, some basics. Are you okay with that? It is 8:10 now. It is. We have 20 minutes more. So shall I tell you what it is? Okay.
2 words on Jacques Derrida also. Jacques Derrida.
Yeah. Jacques Derrida. These names, Jacques Derrida, Foucault, these are considered to be the founding fathers of what they call postmodern thinking. The last talk I have planned for this series in this week is on skepticism. Do we need to be skeptic? Skepticism is a very important aspect of philosophy. Skepticism means doubting. To be skeptic means to doubt. To doubt the validity of the statement given by the next person is called to be skeptic. Okay? And this approach in philosophy is skepticism. And this is the foundational aspect of any new thinking. Any research does not come unless you question the other person, unless you doubt the validity of the statement given by the other person. Even Vakyartha does not happen, Shastrartha does not happen, no argument happens unless you doubt the validity of the statement given by the next person. So skepticism is the spirit and life force of any new thinking, any new research, not conversing among ourselves. Okay? Conversations among yourselves are not the spirit of research. No? Come, you. I like you a lot. Sit. You. Yeah. You are my favorite. Come, sit here. He is unnecessarily disturbing you, right? Come, sit. He was unnecessarily disturbing you, right? Okay. So, you are now very good friends because you are sitting so apart. Okay. Otherwise, you would have quarreled among yourselves if you sit closely. Okay. So, this postmodern school comes from those foundations of skepticism only. Let me tell you how in literary criticism it has come into existence. We are going to talk about text, context and other things in another talk. There is on 21st January 11:15 you have orality, literacy, text, context, textualism and all these things. In that, in literary criticism what they did is, originally they said, in the afternoon we were talking about historical critical view. If you want to understand, say, Milton, you have to understand Milton from his biography. His biography helps to understand Milton was the original view, or his historical context helps to understand Milton was the original view. And gradually people started revolting against it and they started saying, no, I don't want to take any biographical context or historical context of Milton. I would take only one of his poems, something like At 3 and 20 or L'Allegro or any such poem of Milton, or some sonnets of Milton, or his own Paradise Lost, the whole 12 books of Paradise Lost. I would study that book and I would try to understand the book from within the book only. I will forget even Milton. Once Milton gives the book to me, he has no authority to say anything about it. Okay? Book itself is my basis. From the book only I will understand. You write a poem, give it to your friends and say, this is my meaning. According to this new theory, they say, you have given the poem to me, keep quiet. I will understand the poem on the basis of the poem itself. I have all the evidences within the poem to understand it. Then you will say, sir, no, what I mean is, no. There is nothing like what you mean. It is there in the poem, let me understand. You should have done very good job by creating a good poem, which is organic in itself. After giving the poem, if you are coming and every time saying, what I mean is, why did you write the poem? Keep quiet, go away. Text is there with me. Text is self-sufficient. Poem is self-sufficient. I would understand the poem from within the evidences of the poem itself. This school was called New Criticism School. Within literary criticism, they called it New Criticism. And during the days of New Criticism, the slogan was, author is dead. Author is dead means, once the text is given, the poem is given to me, I don't want to care for the author or his intentions or his biography or any of such material. The text itself is enough for me. Okay? And they called every time going to the author as tyranny of the author. Tyranny of the author, that is dictatorship of the author. The author is creating a dictatorship. Every time he is saying what I mean is, so that what I mean is means dictatorship. He is not allowing me to understand the poem by myself. Every time he is poking his nose in interpreting the poem. So that was called tyranny of the author. And they said, now we don't want to be under the tyranny of the author. We are now saying that author is dead. Author is gone. Only poem is enough. What these postmodern people said is that to imagine that there is a meaning in a poem, one particular meaning in a poem, is also not correct. If you show a movie in a movie hall, if there are 500 audience, each member of the audience understands the movie in a different way. So, if there is a movie running there, 500 movies are running in the minds of 500 people. So, how many meanings of the movie are being taken? 500 different meanings of the movie are being taken. What is that movie? Movie is not the one that is running there. Movies are actually what are running in their minds. So, there is no single meaning of the whole movie. So, these multiple meanings of the movie being possible is the foundation of Jacques Derrida's thinking. Then he said there is no a meaning, the meaning, given meaning of a poem or a text or a word or a statement. He said meanings are just results of interaction between the text and the reader, text and the audience. Right? So, in the interaction between text and the audience, text and the reader, meanings emerge. And those meanings also, I cannot document. When I speak about the meaning of a word, I can only say that this is the meaning of the word under eraser. He used to use the word under eraser. Under eraser means it changes. The meaning that I am giving may not remain the same. It may change. Right? So, he created that kind of a theory that the interpretation of text cannot be a stable business. Interpretation of text cannot be the business of a critique also. Even a critique is, the tyranny of the critique is also not allowed. Audience have the independence. Audience can take any meaning that they take. So, if you see political ideas and similarities with these ideas, originally there were holy books of Semitic religions, Abrahamic religions, and how to interpret the holy book? There is a saint who allows you to interpret. There is a pope who helps you to interpret. And then later they said, I don't want the pope, I don't want the priest, I don't want the saint. Bible is there, I can take my own meaning from it. But today, if you take that to religion, it means that there is no single Christianity. There are as many Christianities as there are Christians. Okay, you understand? So every Christian has a Christianity, a different version of Christianity, and there is nothing like a single culture also. For example, there is nothing like Indian nation, American nation, Russian nation. To imagine that there is a single culture to which everyone has an allegiance, it is not there. Every single individual has a different culture, and that is valid in itself.
So many Christianity, as many Christians. Who says this?
No, I am creating. This statement I was creating. That statement was not given by anyone. I am saying that this leads politically to this. Sociologically, this leads to this. And this is what they liked. Because by that time, politically also, they were saying that social groups also were not big social groups. Within the big social groups, there are sub-social groups, and these sub-social groups have to articulate themselves, they have to assert themselves, and minor groups have to assert politically. So it is not that there is single African nation. There are Zulus and Incas, Incatas and all that. Those communities from among Africans also, from among Zulus also there can be sub-communities. They have to assert themselves, they have to articulate their identities. So these subaltern communities, smaller and smaller communities which are marginalized from the mainstream of any culture, they have to get their voices heard. That was happening parallelly. And that was happening with Foucault, for example, in sociology. Knowledge and power is his theory. There is no single knowledge. Knowledge always keeps changing. Only those social groups which are in power say that this is the knowledge. And concepts are always constructs. Concepts are always social constructs. They are ideological constructs of various social groups. Right? So those constructs, kind of theories, these were parallelly happening in sociology, sociological thinking in postmodernism. So the developments are always towards individuals being very important rather than groups, societies being important. This development was there right in modern times itself. Right from the beginning of modernity, individual was emphasized more than society. Collectivity is less emphasized and individual members are more emphasized. What postmodernism did is, it took it further and further and brought it to literary criticism also. Within literary criticism also, people started saying there is no single meaning of a text. Every meaning that is taken by every individual is correct. You understand? So there is no single meaning of a word. People said, the criticism that came from one of the Indian professors is that you are closing the parliament. What is meant by closing the parliament? So if you say that there are multiple meanings possible, there is no discussion possible about that book. For example, 500 people watch the movie, they come out of the movie hall, and one person tells the other person, oh, it was so nice, wasn't it? Then he says, no. This is your opinion. I have a different opinion. This man says, actually that hero wants to say, this fellow says, no, that is not what he wants to say. Everyone among the audience says, no, that is what he wants to say. I disagree with you. Then there is no scope for talking among each other. There is no scope for any common place where someone sits and writes something. For example, a review of the movie is not possible. While writing the review of the movie, the reviewer thinks, he imagines that there is one opinion that he is expressing, then everyone says that was the reviewer's opinion. And that reviewer's opinion is also a single reviewer's opinion. There can be many reviewers' opinions also. Each one of us has a different opinion. You understand? So that is what was called as closing the parliament. That is, you are not giving scope for discussion at all. Somebody makes a statement, everyone else states, I take my own meaning, you take your own meaning, the multiple meanings are there. I don't understand what you are saying. Actually, I took some meaning which you did not mean. There is no communication. People said this. That was one criticism. Let us talk about it later. But that words have meanings that are created with the interaction of the audience only was already stated by Vakyapadiyam. In Vakyapadiyam it is said that the meanings of different expressions in a language are not fixed, they are created through the interaction between the text and the audience, the word and the meaning taking individual. So there are no fixed meanings. But if at all there is any fixed meaning, it is spota, it is Shabda Brahman. But that is anyway not possible. So Vyavahara does not happen with that. So at the level of Vyavahara, there are always different meanings that are attributed to different words. That was already there, and people pointed it out and said that Vakyapadiyam is already saying what Derrida has said. But this is what is bringing actually bad name to Indian history of science. Whenever somebody comes with a theory, immediately they say Vakyapadiyam has already said this. Or some new theory, immediately we show from some book that this has already been said, without actually showing in what ways it differs, in what ways it is different, or in what ways it is more advanced, or in what ways it is so robust and so broad-minded and umbrella covering and all that. They don't say all these things, they just show the similarities and stop there. But if you show any theory, any new theory being already there in our ancient texts, you should also be very critical in showing not only the similarities but also the differences. For example, the scope for diverse interpretations was always compensated in Bhartrhari with the scope for unity of meaning. And that scope for unity of meaning was always the checks and balances was always there, and that ultimately led to the idea of Shabda Brahman, the spota. This they did not point out, they just said already Vakyapadiyam has said. So that's what I just wanted to share with you. But when you grow further into these fields, when you read both Jacques Derrida and Vakyapadiyam, you will be able to see many differences between Jacques Derrida and Vakyapadiyam. But what is interesting is that what people consider to be a further development in postmodern ideas also already has similarities in Vakyapadiyam. So Vakyapadiyam's proposals, theories are highly advanced theories, was what was pointed out actually. And there are many such ideas in Vakyapadiyam which actually resonate with many advanced theories of communication today, advanced theories of meaning interpretation. There was a letter asking about iconicity. Iconicity means meaning not differing from the word. Okay, differing from the word itself being the meaning. That was discussed in IT industry at some place, and people brought that question to us. Was iconicity discussed in Vakyapadiyam? I immediately showed them verses in Vakyapadiyam where iconicity is discussed. Shabda and Artha, they are considered to be non-different, and Bhartrhari uses the word Abhijalpa for this inseparability of word and meaning. And he also says that there are other schools of thought also, people differ from this school, but I am saying that there is another school which says that meaning does not differ from word. And then he goes on into the details of saying that word itself is a meaning. Word itself is a word about that word. Dva upadana shabdeshu, he says. Dvau upadana. In Sandhi it becomes Dva upadana Shabdeshu. So he says, among those two words, one word is word about the word itself. For example, if I say Tatakaha, Tatakaha is not referring to some Tataka somewhere. Tatakaha is referring to Tataka, the word itself. Anyam arthaye prayojyate. He says. So that is, this iconicity has already been mentioned by him. I showed in that response to him.
IT people use this one, iconicity. Why do they want this?
See, if I have to create a database of words and meanings, then I have to tell the system, I have to tell the database that if I am calling in IT, calling, we call functions, we call pieces of items of database and all that. When you are calling, are you calling the meaning of this string, character string, or are you calling the string itself? If you are calling the string itself as the meaning, then you are doing this iconicity here. Okay. So they were in need of such kind of references to make the program robust without having bugs at all. Otherwise, the program asks you, are you asking me to give the word or the meaning of the word? When you say call tank, so are you asking for the meanings of the tank to be called, or are you asking for the string TANK to be called? Then you have to answer that. So all programming to do without bugs is to be able to imagine the possibilities. So one of the possibilities is this also. So to be able to imagine that, they were talking about iconicity, and they brought this question to me, and then I said, this was already discussed in not only Vakyapadiyam, in general Vyakarana, Vakyartha Sadas also. People keep saying that Shabda itself is actually Artha also. I can bring that as the, when I say Tataka, it does not mean the Tataka, actual Tataka. Even the Shabda Tataka itself is Tataka. That is already there.
Does Bhartrihari propose that Shabda Brahma is the basic raw material of everything as they have Brahman?
Yes, that is what you are working on. You said Anuviddham iva jnanam. Yes, yes, Bhartrihari says that only.
But there are so many arguments against that also.
Yes, yes. The Bhartrihari says that the imperishable raw material of everything is Shabda. That is what is called as Shabda Brahman, the theory of Shabda Brahman. Once during an online course, when all the students, MA students, they are all senior scholars, senior professionals, they were all sitting in their own houses in front of their cameras. I was teaching this Shabda Brahman concept, and tears started rolling from their cheeks. All of them. They started saying, "Sir, what is happening to us? You said something about Shabda Brahman." We are all weeping. Then I said, Shabda Brahman woke up. Shabda Brahman in you woke up. So you are getting that resonance in you. Right? Then, sir, you did something, some magic. Magic cannot be done through online course. Right? So probably I was successfully able to communicate Bhartrihari's idea of Shabda Brahman, and probably Bhartrihari was right in saying that it is all there in you. And probably that got proved through their experience, that they were all getting into that ecstasy of the feeling that, yeah, Shabda Brahman, everything is Shabda Brahman only. So those things are spiritual parts. They probably, we may not be able to articulate those things in the form of a book or an argument or whatever. My suggestion to all the youngsters here is to be open to that also on this campus. You are in an open air campus, Aranya, vana, udyana vana. You have a scope for meditation, you have a scope for spiritual experience. Give priority to that. When we study Shastras, we should not always be into those words and words and words and words. Absolutely no use, right? Start experiencing and enjoy your experiences. Share your experiences with Guru Bhais. You know the word Guru Bhai? So, share your experiences. You have to always share your secret spiritual experiences either with a Guru Bhai or Guru only. Outside this system, it should be secret. You should not share it with anyone else not belonging to our system of Guru Parampara. So, if it is not our Guru Bhai, not our Guru, our spiritual experiences always are to be kept as our own personal, private, secret, mystic experiences. Please be open to that. Don't get washed away in the wind of words. These are all, they keep come and going, but be open to spiritual experiences. Share them with your friends. I am not your Guru Bhai, so don't share it with me. So please share it with your Gurus and the actual Guru Bhais that are there. If a Guru Bhai, if a person whom you consider to be a Guru Bhai and share your experience laughs at it, he is not your Guru Bhai. So consider from that moment that he is not your Guru Bhai. If he is really a Guru Bhai, even if he is not on this campus, he will agree with you. Once there was a person from Varanasi, he was studying with a guru of Swara Yoga. He said, this person told me that that guru was 345-year-old person. Swara Yoga, you know, breath yoga. Breath yoga is called Swara Yoga. It's a huge school of yoga called Pranayama itself is developed into a huge school of yoga called Swara Yoga. Okay, I have books on Swara Yoga. There is a Patanjali Sutra kind of Yoga Darshana Sutra kind of book on just Swara Yoga. I got it through email from somebody who got confused and thought that it is a different version of Patanjali Sutras only and sent it to me. Then when I read, I realized that it is a Swara Yoga book. But this man who came from Varanasi was talking to me. We were standing in a bus stop. Then I said something about Swara Yoga, Pranayama to him. He immediately said, this used to happen to me when I was with my guru in Varanasi. I have a question, some Guru Bhai answers that. Not my guru. Guru never answered. Guru always used to remain mauna. But only Guru Bhais answer my questions. But today you answered it. It means that you are my Guru Bhai. But I never saw that Guru. I never went to Varanasi. I never met that Swara Yoga Guru. Then he said that I believe now that you are my Guru Bhai. I don't know in which janma it was that I was his Guru Bhai. But probably that miracle happened to him. So if it happens to you that somebody from Madhya Pradesh, somebody from Kashmir is able to share your experiences and gel with you properly, it means that without your knowledge, he is your Guru Bhai. Though you do not know, you have never seen him to be your Guru Bhai, he is. If not in this janma, in some other janma, he could have been your Guru Bhai. That is why he is able to gel with you so well. Okay?
स्थापकाय सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः।